Hello.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Obviously we have a great background today. Probably the best background ever. The greatest background. The greatest to ever exist. And that concludes my impression for the day.
You are going to crack me up today, seriously. I can't.
For those of you who don't know, I spent the last 5 minutes singing Toby Keith's Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue purely on memory with no background music, to which Michelle was absolutely floored that I knew all the lyrics. And you might get a sneak peek of it if the right keywords are said. It may just send me into singing that song today, so we'll see.
It's it's gonna be interesting because today is all about what?
I was gonna say, let's introduce ourselves.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, I am Michelle Barone from Moksha Grace Coaching, and I believe in liberating your emotions, your choices.
Perfect for today's episode.
Yes. So that you can rip off the mask that you've been hiding behind and you can be your authentic self without fear of being bullied or put down or questioned or judged.
Swayed by emotions, by your emotions, emotional appeals. Yeah.
Exactly.
And hi everyone, I'm Krista. With Wicked Wisdom Consulting, I am an operations professional. I'm a fractional COO and ops consultant, helping people run their business and get shit done. Kind of like a Swiss Army knife for a business.
I love that.
And today's topic is make good choices, please. And I'm just going to pop that on the screen real quick. And, my motivation behind this, our motivation behind this, excuse me, was, and it was in the write-up for this, but we were watching the Panthers game the other night. Go Panthers. And every single advertisement that came on the TV was so heavily dependent on appealing to emotions and people's emotions and guilt trips, and some of them were just blatantly incorrect. They just had completely wrong information, but they're banking on people not looking into it further. And given the time that we're in and things that are happening, like we early voted today, hopefully you guys are doing the same and or are planning to go out on Tuesday. It's more important than ever to be aware of how emotion is used to manipulate, whether that's with politics, whether that's with family, whether that's with friends, whether that's with a romantic relationship, whatever it is. And given that the election is basically currently happening and will hit its peak on Tuesday, we thought, why not do this topic now?
Yeah.
And so we are.
Yeah. And here we are. And what a day it's been. I did something this morning that I normally don't do, which is share thoughts, feelings about what's happening in life and a little bit of who I am as a person and what I believe. And it came because of something that I heard last night that very much resonated and moved me. And it was Dr. Phil talking at the Trump rally.
Mm-hmm.
So put aside what kind of rally it was. If you don't believe on that side, that's fine. I really don't care. My point is that what resonated with me was the fact that he said 9/11 was horrific. We all know that. It was one of the worst days in American history, in probably all history. It was horrible. And it was horrible to watch, and it was horrible. You watched it live. I remember that day like it was I'm getting goosebumps. Like I was there. I can see it in my mind. And what he said last night was, as important as that day was, and how horrific it was, 9/12 was the day that actually brought us all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I will say what he said last night. We are all freaking Americans. He didn't say frickin'. He didn't actually say the
I
F word.
figured you probably threw that in. That felt like a Michelle flare.
I'm going to add that in. We are all effing Americans and we all need to start acting like it. And what is it about America that we are proud to be an American about? And it is that we all have the freedom of our God given choices because it is our freaking birthright because we were born here.
I'm being blown away by your intensity. I'm having to hold on to my desk. Holy cow.
I've been holding on to this for a very long time. And
I can
how
tell.
sad is that? That
Yeah.
I have been nervous to come out of the freaking political closet and say that I am a reformed Democrat because I have become a Republican. So bite me if you don't like it, but that is who I am. And I am the same loving, amazing, wonderful person that I have always been. And I function from a place of love. And I don't have time nor energy to spend on people that want to be negative or attempt to bully others for believing the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it to them. When this all started back in 2020 and even before, I didn't go on their Facebook pages and put them down or make them justify their choices. And it really, what did they
Grind
say?
your gears.
Grinds my gears. That was exactly what I was thinking of
I
because that is
gotcha.
the perfect quote. It really grinds my gears
I can tell.
when when anybody questions someone else's passion.
From a place of, because we want to allow questioning. We want to allow the room for that. But what you're talking about is provoking. Just for the
Yes.
just for the purpose of provoking. You're talking about trying to prove someone wrong from a righteousness standpoint.
And an egoic
Not
standpoint as
asking
well.
questions, not saying, well, what are your thoughts about this, but trying to prompt an emotional outburst.
Yes.
And I think
That's just mean. It's mean and it's a bit narcissistic.
a little bit.
And that also grinds my gears. So, yeah,
You know what grinds my gears?
what?
We threw up this beautiful American flag background, and that in and of itself, regardless of the shirts that we're wearing, well, your shirt's same thing as the flag behind us. My shirt might be a little bit more obvious. But something like our American flag and being proud to be an American has become a political choice. Being proud to be an American wearing red, white, and blue has become means that it must mean that you're conservative. In our case, we lean conservative. I wouldn't put either of us in a conservative bucket though. But what happens is when you shift the needle so far left, even if you're moderate, by default you become more conservative. Um,
Yeah.
but today's not just about politics. We just were feeling very patriotic because we went and voted this morning, and I gotta say, wonderful, wonderful job by those
Right?
at the voting place. We were in and out. Everyone was lovely, despite me wearing my Trump shirt and my USA hat. I had one or two people give me nasty looks. That's cool. No, do your thing.
I don't think I
Um,
can lift my foot up.
oh, you're wearing your American flag Converse.
Wait, hold on.
Um, there you go. Obviously, we get dressed for the occasion. If we're gonna do something, we're gonna go full at it. But I
Heck
thought that
yeah.
The only thing that bugged me about the polling booth was, there were so many people with their banners and their signs that were blocking like the entire sides of the parking lot and some of the parking spots, and
Yeah.
it just was so hard to get in and out of the parking lot. But I mean, 10 out of 10. Well, 9 out of 10 experience at the voting place, because also I got in line and the
That was
lady
funny.
goes, "Oh, are you voting today?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And she goes, she screams out to
In
the
front of
entire
everybody.
polling location, "We got a first time voter." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. Ma'am, I've voted like twice already. Like, this is not, I'm almost 30. It's not, oh my God, you look so young. Thank you so much. Appreciate that." But that would be between that and the parking lot.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everyone running it was very nice, very sweet. It was very organized. Um, it was a wonderful experience. We got really lucky. It was not busy at all. We got right in. Um,
Hmm.
really can't say enough about our local polling location.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really
Um, I actually thanked everyone. I was like, thank you so much for
Me
working
too.
and being here. And I'm not going to lie, when I submitted my ballot and the little thing came up and, it like was,
Fun.
yeah, it was spinning. And then it said, your vote has been counted. I got a little tear in my eye. I did.
No, you didn't get a tear. Okay, maybe you got a tear in your eye then, but let's just set the record straight. And yes, Raymond, I know it's shocking. I'm old enough to vote. Really, truly wild. Let me just throw that comment up so people know what I'm talking about. But let me just set the record straight. She may have teared up submitting her vote, but she also basically started crying on the walk to the car, just out of like pure excitement and happiness. And I think that is really freaking cool, regardless of who you're voting for. Showing up, putting your vote in. And listen, I know that there's a lot of people who say votes don't count, none of it matters anyway. If it's going to cheat, what does it matter? Blah, 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 blah. That is what those who have nefarious agendas want. They want you
Mhm.
to not vote, because when you don't vote, that gives more room for things to happen.
Yeah.
That gives you less of a voice. Is the system perfect? Not at all. Is it super flawed and has a lot of room for cheating? Absolutely. But to not participate at all, that's also not patriotic. That's also not being an American. That is our God given right as Americans. You got to get out there and vote.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
And you
morning.
got to do your research when you vote. I mean, I literally this morning, we talked about this last week, I had that shit
So
printed
confusing.
out. I had it bolded and highlighted, and this is why, this is what a yes means, this is what a no means. Make your own choice. I had that shit all outlined. And
Well,
listen, it
thank
only took me,
goodness.
yeah, oh my gosh, I know. Some of those, because the way that they write the amendments, they're double negatives.
Well,
So
okay.
if
So
you
I think
think
the
that you're
one
writing
I definitely think the one safe one. Sorry to interrupt you, but the one safe one that I think we can talk about and just
the school
openly.
board members,
No, forget that one. The hunting one, because the bottom line is that if you had not researched, I
mm-hmm,
would have voted for that just
yeah,
because. Well, we all have a right to
mm-hmm,
hunt, right? I mean, if
yeah.
we need food.
Let me give context. So we have an
Yeah.
amendment on our bill to the secure the God-given right to hunt and fish. But the problem is that there's a lot of, the way that it was originally proposed, it was specifically changed to not include language protecting private property, to not include language protecting against methods that are now deemed inhumane and things like that. And so, this is something that's really interesting and important, is that it's not just about how it's written. You also have to consider the implications from it. You also have to consider what isn't included. Where does it give wiggle room? And they're written specifically to confuse you.
Right.
That, I mean, really, truly, they're written to not to confuse you. And so that one was a tricky one, because at its surface, yes, everyone should have the right to fish and hunt. Absolutely, that should be locked in. But when you throw other stuff in, or you specifically change language that gives room for not great things to happen, that's where it becomes a problem. And
Right.
regardless of your interpretation of it, and yeah, Raymond, to your point, I totally understand that. The thing that discourages me when it comes to voting is the existence of the Electoral College and its
Yeah.
role in elections. Absolutely. That's like with these amendments where we are. Most of them require a 60% um, vote to be adopted. That's not majority. Majority is 51%, but it's not. It's 60%.
Right.
So same thing along those lines, and it's really frustrating. And the only way for us to see a difference is for us to get involved. It is
And
for us,
continually push back.
right, and continually push back and not just take it, because what do we know? If you give an inch, people take a mile. So, all is it perfect? Not at all. Not at all. I mean, that's like I was watching the interview, Joe Rogan's podcast, and yes, he was talking to Trump, but they were talking about what is, when it comes to the voter IDs and stuff, what is a reason beyond giving room to cheat?
Right.
What is the other reason to not require IDs? I would love to hear someone come up with that other than, well, it doesn't work out well for low income people.
Why? Because they don't know how to.
They have to get, I mean, it's just, I'm missing where that piece is that makes it like that's not just an
Right.
obvious mechanism for cheating.
And also not it's insulting
Yeah.
to those that they feel can't be smart enough, capable. And the other thing that they said in that interview, which I thought was so interesting, is back in the day, they didn't do mail in freaking ballots.
No.
How do you know who is mailing it in and who's
Well,
filling it out for the person?
absolutely. And here's the other thing: the United States Postal Service endorsed a single candidate. So the United States Postal Service, who is in charge of transporting mail-in ballots, has endorsed one of the candidates, thus having a bias against the other candidate.
Absolutely.
How is
That
that okay?
I don't even think that's supposed to happen.
That's what I said.
I mean, mail in ballots when I was a kid was about if you
It was
were
usually, yeah, if you were overseas,
right, if
if
you were
you had
overseas,
some
something
sort
like
of
that.
incapacitating disability that you couldn't leave home. But now it's become the regular, and that's where we're having so many problems.
Right.
Part of where we're having so many problems.
Yeah. And it just should not be allowed. Like go out and they do it with the census, right? If elderly can't come to vote, then have someone go to their place and set up of ballot
Listen, they have on the
machines.
go freaking X-ray machines. You can't get an on the go,
Right.
like Vitas Healthcare can't have a voting van.
It would
Sorry,
be,
call out
I mean,
Vitas.
literally, it literally would, it would also give people jobs around elections. Like, hello. So yeah, that would be a great idea, is just to go out, check IDs, and have somebody vote.
Yeah.
Allow them to also
Or
exercise their right.
better yet, just vote in person. There's, a set amount of exception, like set situations where there's exceptions, but get your ass to the polling booth.
Yeah.
They're
And
all over the place.
and make choices based on who you are and what you believe, not because you,
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. So when I was doing all my research, there were all these different websites where it was like vote blue, vote red, which actually the blue side had, I mean, there was like maybe one red site that I found, but everything else was like, there's so many vote blue sites that literally the entire point of the site is just to give you a laundry list, not tell you, just tell you this is who you need to vote for. Do your own research. But anyway, the other thing, like today's episode is not just supposed to be about politics. Again, we're just excited because we voted today and that felt really good. But the other part of today's episode is not being led by just emotions. How do you know when someone's trying to appeal to your emotions? Because as we've talked about in previous episodes, if you can be easily swayed by your emotions, you're easily manipulated. And
Mhm.
no one wants to be manipulated. So
Right.
how can we identify when we're being emotionally appealed to? because
Mhm.
it's very seductive. It's a very seductive technique where it appeals to your emotions. It
Yeah.
sounds really good. Maybe it feels good. But then maybe a week later you hear something else and you're like, "Oh my god, I didn't even think about that."
Yeah.
So how do we begin to identify that and not be swayed by that?
Know your own values first.
Mm,
That's number one.
mhm,
Know your own values first.
mhm,
Because if you don't know who you are to the core and what you believe in for yourself, not what your grandpappy and grandmommy taught you, but what you actually believe in, then you can start making choices based on who you are right now, not who you were in the past, because who I was in the past wouldn't have made the same vote I did today. Um, and I remember the first time that I voted differently than the rest of the family because I wasn't there yet.
mhm,
And so it's not when there are people out there that are going to want to trigger you. There are going to be people that are going to say things that are going to rile you up. And when we get riled up and when we get so emotional, we have like this emotional blackout. And
mhm.
that's when we do that knee jerk reaction. Sometimes
Absolutely.
we're not even sure what we said. Hence why, people say like don't send an angry email, wait 24 hours, reread it the next
Oh,
day.
yeah.
And then maybe even reread it the day after that too. Just to be careful, just to make sure you really mean it because there's things you can't take back.
Mhm,
And so making sure that you're not being manipulated or triggered because there are people out there that will literally go, I know what triggers that person. I'm going to say this.
mhm,
And so now you're being manipulated. There somebody is trying to affect your vibe, your energy and suck it out of you and put you in a worse place.
mhm.
Do not allow that because they don't have the right to do it unless you give them the right.
Yeah. It makes me think a lot of, we have and have had, um, a lot of family members who are of the generation that guilt tripping
Oh, yeah.
is very popular. And as a kid, it worked wonderfully on me.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got to a certain point where I realized this feels very icky. I don't like the way that this makes me feel. I
It's
don't want to do this thing that they want me to do. I don't want to come and have dinner just because they're trying to make me feel bad about it. Like I don't want to live my life that way.
right.
And so I flipped the switch in my head and guilt tripping no longer works on me. Ask
Right.
anybody, believe me.
No, doesn't.
Um, but I think that's another key part of it is it's not just don't allow people to do it, but it's literally I think you have to get to a certain point where you just decide I am willing to see everything to make the best choice for me. I
Mhm.
am willing to look at those things that are hard to see if it means that I'm going to get to the answer that resonates with me the most. And I think that's where a lot of people these days get tripped up is we're so afraid of what the answer is sometimes that we don't even want to look at it.
Yeah.
And so we go with the choice, the belief, the thought, the action, whatever that is more mainstream or more trendy or whatever it is at the
Or
time because
easier.
we don't want to look at this other thing.
Right.
And
And
I
and
remember go ahead.
I was going to say this can be about your health. This can be
Yeah, that's
about
what I mean.
right, food choices. This can be about relationships, dating. This can be about career, um,
Mhm.
the people that you hang out with. It's not just politics. This is
Yeah.
about your choices and how you process, how you go through the process of making a choice for yourself.
Mhm. I'll be very honest and say I've left a previous role of mine in my career. Part of the reason why I left was because my boss wanted to make everything emotional. Everything was emotional. Everything was a personal hit to her. Everything that I said and did was about her. And it got to a point where I just decided I'm not willing to do that anymore. I'm not interested in telling my coworkers and my boss about the inner workings of my personal life so that they feel good about themselves. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I decided to leave that role because there's certain boundaries that should be in place.
Right. Well, and I've left a couple roles because it started to feel like my integrity
Mhm.
what it was about to breach my integrity. What
Mhm.
I was being asked
Mhm.
to do or say or not defend but explain was
Mhm.
going to breach my integrity, and I was not willing to do that.
Mhm.
And so stepping down was the only option, or going to HR and committing, and we've talked about this, committing my career suicide. That was a choice
Mhm.
that I made, and I made it. I was very conscious of my choices. I made them for the right reasons for me. Other
Mhm.
people thought I was crazy. There's still people that are like, I never understood why you handled it that way.
Yeah.
You weren't in my shoes. You
Right.
didn't know what I was going through behind closed doors with my, narcissistic, sociopathic boss,
Yeah.
and the things that were being said to me in every meeting and being beaten down, and the attempt of the emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
And so I chose myself, I chose my health, I chose my family because I had to. I
Mhm.
had to make the hard choice. Was the money good? Yeah, the money was great. Healthcare was great. All that stuff was good. Having health insurance and 401k and all that, but what it was costing me and what it was about to cost me, I wasn't willing to cross that line.
Yeah.
And so knowing your values is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing of being
Yeah.
an adult, of being a person, because then you know where your line is.
Yeah.
This is my line, and I am not willing to cross it for anybody or anything. But if you don't know your values, you don't know where that line is. And then that's when we start getting wibbly wobbly. And then that's when we start having regrets, or we start getting manipulated, or we feel guilty, or all of these other things that come up and we get triggered. No, no, it's not going to happen.
Mhm.
And social media this morning, I last night I posted, I felt good about that. What resonated with me, I didn't ask for anybody's opinion. I didn't want to debate. I didn't want to hear any negativity. It was a positive thing. And yet, the negativity Nellies had to come out and they had to put in their 2 cents. And so I posted, not on my page. Take it somewhere else. Scroll by. If it doesn't resonate with you, scroll by. I don't need your input. I don't want your input. I didn't ask for it.
Mhm.
I was putting myself out there so that I can be authentic and say, this felt good to me. And maybe somebody else needs to hear
Mhm.
that
Well,
we're not going to put up with bullies anymore.
and I saw the comments, and I think the thing that's interesting is it's a perfect example of what I'm referring to, where it's keeping your eyes open, regardless of where you stand or what your thoughts are on anything. You have to be willing to look at the other side from a neutral standpoint.
Right.
You have to be willing to look into something. Even if I hear news that sounds, a societal news that sounds really, really good, I'm still going to look into it to make sure that there's not some sort of back end whammy that's happening that's going to, mean that it's not so great. If it's on the other side, or, regardless of what side, because let's be real, everything is dualistic. We've talked about this before. Everything
Mhm.
is dualistic. There's always two sides.
Mhm.
Um, regardless of what side something's coming from, I'm going to look into it because I don't trust either side, to be honest with you. Um, but it's keeping a willingness to truly look into that other side and be willing to push through a little bit of discomfort in order to truly look at that other side, because especially in politics, regardless of what both sides twist and manipulate words to get their way. They'll throw things in a
Absolutely.
bill to get it passed because they know the other piece of it is super important. Um, there's a lot of trickiness in politics, especially
Yeah.
that they depend on us being so emotionally dysregulated that we're not going to look into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I would argue, is the bigger problem in today's politics.
Yeah.
Because if we actually did our duty and we looked into things appropriately, people wouldn't be able to, the people in office would not be able to get away with the same things that they are.
Right.
But what's happening is no one's looking past the headlines. Most people are not looking past the headlines, and that's where we get the problems that we've been.
Right.
That's how Trump has become such a demonized figure. That's how um, we've seen a real degradation of politics over the last 10 years, is because people are not willing to look. They see a TikTok, they see a Instagram post, a Facebook post,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and they're not willing to look. They're not willing to listen to the other side. Um, and that's a problem. But why is that? Well, how does that problem come up? Well, that problem comes up because social media has been training us to only see the things that resonate with us.
And only see what they've put out there, and what is the mass media not diving in and making it sound like it's bad to dive into a rabbit hole, when actually you get the best information from places outside of the US.
Not
Because,
necessarily.
well, some of, if you bring that in, you can get some really good information. Not all of it, but
It
it can be part of
regardless
your research.
regardless of where it comes from, it's about looking for the actual factual information, not the biased rhetoric that articles are written in or posts are written in, or especially with AI, you have to be diligent. You
Yeah.
cannot just sit back anymore and let the TV tell you who to vote for. The ads themselves that are running on American television are not even factual anymore.
Right.
We have to do our due diligence and look into it. We can't just sit by and not. And that goes for everything. Again, this isn't just politics based.
Right. Right.
This goes
And we
for
keep,
everything.
yeah, we keep slipping back into it. And even if it's somebody that, I don't know, you meet at a party or you meet somewhere and you're like, you know what, let me look them up online. Well, guess what? Half of what you see online about somebody's life, they're only showing you either the really good parts, if they're negative Nellies, or if they're negative Nellies, they're only showing you like the oh poor me part. And if they're positive, then how do you know that they're really living that high on the hog? That's just what they're posting. That's not the real them. That's not the real them. You have to get to know the person. You have to spend time with that person. And I'm talking about building a relationship. I'm not talking about politics, because
Well, I was gonna the
we're
example
never going to meet those people.
the example I was gonna give is when you're friends with somebody and they go, "Oh, I don't like that person," and so you just blindly adopt that you also don't like that person.
Right.
But then maybe you run into that person while you're out one day and you guys bond over stuff and you realize, oh wow, that person is awesome. I know someone who has said for the last 10 years she's thought this one person that we both happen to know hasn't really liked her. Just, I get the wrong vibe from her. But then she spent some time with her and realized, oh, I think I may have been getting the wrong impression of this person.
Right.
And then I chime in and go, oh yeah, definitely. What you're seeing is it might be some of the anxiety that's coming out that's just presenting in the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. And how sad is that? I mean, that goes along with our conversation the other day about, you know, burn the witches, but whatever happened to the people that burned the witches, that made the decision to scare everybody? and make it such a bad thing that they were doing something that was different, something that, and that's the thing, is that you can choose, and I know I say this and I'm never going to stop saying this, you can choose to live from a space of fear, or you can learn to live from a place of love.
Yeah.
And i want I want to be in a space where choices are your own. I want to be in a space where I feel free to share that and not be judged. And I don't care if I am judged, because that's their problem, not mine. So I really don't care. I care for them because I care about other people, but I can't change other people's journeys for them.
Yeah.
And we can't change other people's minds. We can't force people. We can't convince people. Everyone has to make it on their own, in a sense, make up their own minds. But again, do you want to make up your mind from a place of fear or a place of love? What do you want? Don't look at the what don't you want. And we had a situation last week where we know someone that we love very much who is very much focused on all the negative things that were happening in the moment, versus let's look at the positives. Let's look at what's going right, not what's going wrong. And having that conversation helped the situation and shifted a bit of the perspective.
Yeah. And I would say, living in fear are those people who refuse to look at both sides. Living in fear looks like the people who are easily manipulated emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can, and again, if you can get to emotions, you can get to anything within someone. Think of all of the movies with villains in them. Think of Suicide Squad. How
Mm-hmm.
does the villain try to get to everybody at the end? They show them their greatest heartaches or dreams. Why? Because that's how you sway people.
That's how you get to
In
their
the
week.
in the coaching world, I'm gonna give a
Mm-hmm.
little background. No one really talks about it. Insight. In the coaching world, you have one of two scripts. You have a script that takes you down the path of get this person to their greatest fear and then tell them how this solves the problem. Or you have the script that says, let's touch on their dream and how we can help them do that. Why? Because the only things that motivate people are love or fear.
Right.
And if you're operating from fear, it means that you're not willing to look at the full picture. And
Yep.
there are some people who will blatantly admit that. There's a podcast I listened to where one of the gentlemen on it is like, honestly, I really don't even want to look at conspiracy theories because I know that I don't want to know what they are. I know that I can't handle
Yeah.
what's really going on behind the scenes, so I just don't want to look.
Yeah.
And
Well,
at least he's to the point where he can admit that. But a lot of people are not ready to do that yet because they're so deeply ingrained in fear.
you said that, and all I kept thinking about was how many times I've always said, like, I don't want to know how Disney makes the magic. I just want to go to Disney and have fun. Uh,
That's like I mean, you've been saying that for I don't even want to know what's in Count Chocula. I just like it. Then you looked at it and you went, oh, I get it now. Okay, yeah, I don't want to eat that anymore. And that's the whole other point is that you can't rush people where they are. You can't get them to see things that they don't want to see. And I think that's been a really interesting thing. Sorry to go back to politics, but that's where we are right now. I think that's a really interesting thing that's happened the last 4 years is all of the horrific things that we've been experiencing in the last 4 years has really opened so many people's eyes because it's forced them to the point of discomfort where they then are now willing to see everything.
Yeah.
They don't just have their blinders on anymore. So I think if there's a positive that we can see from the last 4 years, I mean, listen, right now we're in a state where people can't afford groceries, they can't afford gas, they can't afford rent, they can't afford anything. And is money everything? No, but it helps you get your basic needs.
Yeah.
Um, but when you can get people to that state and you can get them emotional because they are desperate, that's
Mm-hmm.
where they then stop paying attention to everything else that's going on because they are so focused on their basic necessities that they no longer have time to focus on what's happening with the celebrities. They have no longer have time to focus on what the politicians are doing with their small little bills that they're passing. They have no time to focus on what's happening overseas because they're so concerned with just getting their food, shelter,
Right.
water, and basic human connection.
Yeah. I saw a story this morning or last night about North Carolina and the road between uh, Chimney Rock and um, the other place. I can't remember the second town's name. And they were saying it was going to, the officials were saying it was going to take months.
I think it was years.
Miners came in, they did it for free, and there's a road. There's a road now. They did it for free.
Man, it's amazing what happens outside of government politics. And
Right. Right,
yeah.
because there's
Things are worth it.
stonewalling and there's money that has to be made, and and some of the topics last night. Look at sorry but not sorry, and even the other day on Joe Rogan, look at what happened in Michigan with the cars. All of these people that worked for these auto companies, they had wonderful careers, and then in a decision it was gone. And so we ship in all these cars when we were making our own Detroit. We were making our all of our own cars. And so that's when I'm like, people, wake up. Sorry to go back to this, but people, we are freaking Americans. Start standing up and acting like it.
Well, and this is where the playing on people's emotions comes in. If you can play on someone's emotions, it's the same thing as getting people down to focusing only on the basic necessities. If you can get someone riled up enough, they're not going to pay attention to the other side of things. There's been tons of, I mean, literally just doing research for our local amendments and stuff. At first, when would first read how the amendment's written, I was like, oh, well, that seems like an obvious yes. And then I would look a little bit deeper and I would read about what does it mean for a yes and what does it mean for a no. And I go, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that happens if you're not looking, you get so swayed by that seductive language that
Yeah.
sounds really good and it sounds like it's going to be so helpful. Oh, I didn't think about that other thing that's going to happen that's going to cause my taxes to go up. Or that other thing that's going to happen that's going to cause like my entire town to get incinerated. Or right now we've got a thing that's down the street. They're trying to put a giant like incinerator in. And it's like, okay, that sounds good, but also it's going to like kill a
Not
ton of
really.
wildlife or something. Like it's just, there's so many things that
But wait.
presented emotionally.
Let's not use gas and let's use electric cars. But oh, we didn't realize that our grid was going to get fried and it was going to take too much, pull
Okay,
too much
here's the
energy.
here's
Shut the
the thing.
whole
Stop,
system.
stop. Here's the thing. How do you charge an electric car?
You have to plug it in.
Yeah, and what runs that power?
The
Coal
electric.
and gas. The same thing that you would put into your gas vehicle.
I didn't even think
This
of
is
that.
another this is another perfect example. It sounds beautiful and
Right.
seductive, and we're gonna save the environment, and we're gonna cut down on pollution, and oh
Oh,
yeah, it's the hottest new thing. Oh, I didn't think about the fact that when I plug it in, it's just gonna be I guess it is burning the same thing. And now it's not just so you're burning the same amount of either coal, fossil fuels, whatever. The same thing is happening. It's just not from your individual car. But now what you've done is added on the added pressure to the power grid, where now I believe it's California is
hmm,
telling people like, oh yeah, no, we need you to not run all of this stuff because it's going to shut our grid down.
right. You can't charge your car.
So it's a perfect example of this thing that sounds so great. But we didn't think about this piece over here because this sounded so good. So
How
we didn't
about
think about this.
having those electric cars down here in, Hurricane Alley?
That caught on fire because they're sitting in water and they're electric and they're not stable enough to sit in water. So instead of just
Right.
having your home flooded, it's now burned to the ground, potentially with you in it.
Right.
Yeah. Another example, this seductive,
Oops.
pretty thing here. Look at this. It's going to make you're going to be contributing to saving the environment. LOL JK, which also potentially has the risk of like burning your house down and even more environmental impact. Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah. I,
It's all about how can we make this thing look really good so that you don't think about all this stuff behind the scenes.
yeah. Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Even how many times has a friend of ours been like, "Oh, hey, are you busy later?" And you're like, no, not at all. Okay, great. Can you come help me move?
What?
Or, oh, hey, you should come out with me later. I'm going to grab a drink at the bar around the corner. Meanwhile, they've invited someone they're trying to hook you up on a date with. There's a lot of applications for this. It's everywhere. It's pervasive, and that's why it's so important
Mm-hmm.
to be in control of your emotions, or at least be aware of them.
So
Know
when
where you're being triggered.
Right. So when stuff does come up, you're not triggered. You can have control of your emotions and you can respond appropriately.
And you also can be very, because once you understand your emotions and once you understand how to respond versus react and all of that, you also become very aware of when people are trying to play on your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like back in college, um, we would have different. We would have like I think we had a, maybe it was a class or whatever, a lesson, whatever it was, and it was showing the different parts of like making a movie and a film and where ad placements come in and all of that. I now can't watch a movie without seeing some sort of product and be like, oh, Pepsi sponsored this movie. Oh,
Right.
I guess, this tire company invested in this movie, because you start to spot it once you're aware of it. And the same thing happens here. And that's why when I see like a commercial or whatever, I go, yeah, I'm going to look. I don't know about that. Let me look into that.
Right.
Or if I see really good news, I go, let me just make sure that that is as good as it sounds like it is. Or
Yeah.
really, or something that's not so great. Let me make sure that someone's not playing with words here or twisting this into something that it's not.
Yeah.
But that, that's what it means to be a person in today's world.
Anyone that's watching, if you guys have anything to add and anything to say, please jump in because we would love to hear from you and definitely share this out because we have to. I'm gonna say it again.
Hmm?
I'm gonna say it again. We're all in this together.
Oh
We're
my
all
gosh, High School Musical. We're
in
all in this
this
together.
together.
Ba, 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 ba,
I
ba.
wanted to get you to sing the other song. We're all Americans. We're all Americans, and we have to look out for each other. And that means there's times when we have to cross the line as far as the party line and blend the blue. Blue and red make purple. How pretty.
Yeah, true.
So I'm going to root for collaboration. I'm going to root for Americans collaborating again so that
It's
we,
already happening. I
yeah,
mean, look at Kennedy.
Kennedy, Elon. Look at what freaking Elon did in North Carolina. Look at the Starlinks that were just magically appeared.
Here's the last thing I'll say. Someone commented on my response to a post of yours from last night, talking about the way that someone speaks. And my point is, I would much rather have someone act in a way that benefits others rather than just talk about it.
Yeah.
Anyone can talk about things. Anyone can talk about the things that they want to do, but not everyone's going to actually take those actions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I'm very passionate about, because in my line of work, there are a lot
Actions
of
matter.
people in the consulting and contracting industry that like to talk about a lot of things. They like to talk about how good they are at things and how they're going to solve a lot of solutions, but then they don't actually do it.
Right.
And I'm more interested in those who are really good at what they do and get the results
Yep.
and perform the actions that they say that they're going to do. Words mean nothing to me. Words are words.
Yeah.
And I'm someone that got bullied as a kid. Like, that made me who I am. Those words were fuel to get me to where I am now. I'm not worried about words. Words are words. But actions show you where a person is actually coming from.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm more concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Because so what if someone says something that doesn't sound exactly right or whatever. It doesn't come out the right way. Okay, that's happened to me for my entire life. Great. I'm glad someone else is normal.
I'm just thinking of some interviews lately that I've heard that the person didn't make sense, or the
All
teleprompter.
I'm saying is
I, and
actions speak louder than words. And if
right,
somebody needs a script for everything that they do, then that means that they are not acting genuinely. People who are truly knowledgeable about a topic, people who are truly passionate about a topic, do not need scripts. They do not need teleprompters. They do not need cue cards. They know what they're talking about.
they're also not going to sit by and let shit happen that they're going to talk about later and say that they're going to fix when they already had the opportunity and they didn't
You're
fix.
taking my unbiased just statements and putting spin on it. Can you just
Sorry.
let them sit where they are? Because when you do that, it makes someone who maybe there's a chance that they will hear beyond their confines. They may be able to hear it, but not when you interject that.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm
See that?
feeling
Conflict
very
resolution, live and unshockingly delightful.
I'm feeling very passionate today.
I can tell. And look at that. You don't have a script or a teleprompter. You're just speaking from your heart. And you know what? Does it come out right every single time? Maybe not, but I respect it. I appreciate it. And I would vote for you
Thank
because I know that
you.
it's coming from your truth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you know what? I would vote for you too. And
I know you would.
I think that if we collaborated, we would be that dynamic duo.
I'll be president. You be VP.
I don't even know that I would want to be VP. I think I
Oh,
would
I have
be
no interest in
I
being
would want to
president.
be in charge of a specific thing. Because I just
I don't want to be in politics at all.
no, but
How
I'm
about
just
that?
saying just in whatever. I would just rather be either in charge or in charge of a thing, not a VP that takes up the slack or is supposed to take up the slack. Because that's what that means to me. Like maybe that's a little thing I need to. It brings up a little trauma of being the alternate in the cheerleading squad that you
Oh my.
know I ended up
See how far
becoming.
back things can go, people? Traumas
Yeah,
can last for a long time.
you got to address it. So I need to go talk to little Michelle, the cheerleader.
Yeah. On that note, I'm getting very hungry, which is making me tired. So
Yeah.
if we could wrap up, that would be great.
Yes, I think we should. And thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Share us out, like, subscribe, click on the link to get
If you
notified.
if you didn't like this at all, that's cool. Our regularly scheduled programming will be back soon. And if anything, this just showed you that not everybody who leans conservative is a pile of poo. And most of us actually aren't. Despite what is being said about us, we are very loving people. We're very open minded people. And we are not all of these horrible things that are being said about us.
Right. And there's a lot of faith and spirituality too that goes with that, but we won't get
True.
into that.
True.
What Moment of Presence is about picking your poison, which
Mhm.
is going to be an interesting conversation. Looking forward to that. And Krista, where can people find you if they need help with their, businesses?
If you need help with your businesses, you can find me at wickedwisdomconsulting.com. You'll find all of my information, my services. You can book a call on there, whether that's a consult or a networking chat. You can book it at wickedwisdomconsulting.com. That's actually below and above. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of that. What about you, Michelle?
You can find me at mokshagrace.com and anywhere in social media under Moksha Grace. And you can book a compatibility call with me. That's just a conversation that we have just to make sure that I understand what it is that you're looking for as far as outcomes and that I can absolutely help you get there and what that would look like because I customize everything per client. And I also have a community called Odonata, which is all about weekly group coaching And that's a lot of fun because we pull in from, it's on Thursday nights, and we pull in from the topic of moment of presence and any other topics that may come up. And we, I do coaching, live coaching right then and there. So you join the community, you can subscribe monthly and get your coaching on.
And the coaching does not contain anything political, just for the record.
Yes, no. Political, there's nothing about no politics come into coaching. Coaching is about,
Unless it's a situation where maybe, you're struggling to be in the same room with your uncle because he is the opposite side as you. And in that case, the politics will briefly come up, but just in the sense of helping you regulate your emotions.
right. It's all about regulating your emotions so that way you can respond appropriately. So it has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with you and being the best higher version of
Right.
yourself. So that way it impacts your relationships, your career, yourself. So, with that said, as always, it was a pleasure to go voting as a family together. We should have taken a picture outside of
We
the
usually
voting.
do.
I know. And I'll see you in 2 seconds, but I will also see you on Thursday for our conversation about pick your poison.
Yes, and we'll see all of you then too.
See
Bye.
you later. Go vote.